Hej och välkommen tillbaka till NovoVia Show. Idag har vi en liten annan inriktning och det är för att Lighthouse Conversations riktar sig till alla som skulle vilja kommunicera på ett annat sätt. Motiverade samtal som ni kommer ihåg kanske från sist handlar om att på en empatisk sätt prata om vardagliga saker och även svåra saker. Och det är lite grann det vi fokuserar på idag. Idag har jag med mig min underbara kompis här, Paul. Han kommer från England och som jag så har vi flyttat hit båda två för kärlekens skull. Och det ska vi få höra lite om. Så vi kommer under intervjun prata engelska, men ni kommer att kunna få läsa här nere vad vi pratar om. Så häng med här nu. Så nu kommer vi att vända oss till intervjudelen av radioshowen och det är tillsammans här med Paul, min gäst. Ämnet som vi kommer att diskutera nu känner inte jag är kanske så känslig. Men det kan vara så att man behöver lite stöd i hur man kan kommunicera och hur vi som vuxna kan faktiskt stötta tonåringar när de tänker på sin sexualitet. Så jag kommer att vända mig till Paul och prata engelska lite grann nu. Men häng med subtitles som finns längst ner. Paul, thank you for coming on the show with me today.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, yeah. This is wonderful. We have brainstormed that we wanted to do something and talk about this because it's a topic that's really important.
Yeah, it's important to me, and I think a lot of people out there in the community, you know, regardless what side you're on, if you're in part of the LGBTQ plus community or maybe just a loved one, I think it's really important that we take it up and discuss it from all different angles as well.
Yeah. Well, thank you once again.
Yeah.
So tell me a little, why don't you tell the listeners about yourself?
Okay, so as you introduced me before, I've moved to Sweden because of love. I've been part of the community. I come out 16 years ago, I think it is now, so a long time. And in this time, of course, pop culture has become more of a thing. So I think the coming out process, not that it's got easier, because I don't think anyone really has the right to say that it's easy or it's hard or anything like that, because every situation is personal to that person.
Yeah.
But I've been out for 16 years and I find Sweden a very open country to live in. As you said, I'm from the UK originally, so it's a little bit different back home, but I still think you can apply the same principles. Because at the end of the day, we're all human, and everyone just wants to be part of a community, and everyone should be accepted nowadays.
Definitely. Well, it's one of our basic psychological needs is feeling like we belong to a group.
Yeah, absolutely.
It doesn't exactly matter what group it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So as I mentioned when I was introducing this in Swedish, this radio show has a lot to do, and the Lighthouse Conversations part has a lot to do with how adults can support teens in different aspects, talking about everyday things or even maybe conversations that are difficult to have. So that's why I wanted to support this. And one thing I wanted to ask you about is during the period when you were, thinking about your sexuality and discussing it with different people, which, of the adults that you spoke to, which reactions helped you continue talking and discussing your sexuality with them?
I mean, it's very, very hard because when you haven't come out to people, you go through this process of questioning yourself a lot, like, is that a thought? Is that this? Or is it just a regular process that everyone goes through? And when you come out to adults, it's very different because it's not just parents and family, it's colleagues maybe. It depends what path that you come out during your life. Like if you're at school, maybe you come out to teachers. It's very different, and these people, of course, you have different kinds of relationships, whether it's your parents, your grandparents, your teacher, so you do react a little bit differently. I have been very lucky in majority of my coming out cases to people, but I am still very cautious, when I tell this information, because it is still a very personal thing. I mean, you don't go into a new job, a new office and be like, hi, nice to meet you, I'm straight. That's not the first thing
Yeah.
you come out with.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be seen. That's not my first quality.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I want to be seen as a nice guy. That
Right.
shouldn't be the first thing that happens.
Well, and I can say he is a
Yeah.
nice guy.
I hope so. Yeah. But so you really have to look at the situation as a whole kind of thing. And when you're coming out, it is a hard process to go through. And not just for the person that's coming out, but also for the person that's listening. You know, as a gay guy, when I was younger, I also understood. I was quite lucky. I also understood that, of course, people have different feelings. People have a different way that they've looked at me. Maybe they had never even thought about it. And then it comes as a shock to some people. And not as in a shock that they they disagree with it, but it's just maybe they wasn't expecting that conversation at that moment in time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's something that adults maybe can think about, is that, because we talk a little bit about that in the book too, is that sometimes you can prepare for a conversation with a teen, or you kind of have to like take the opportunity when it arises, and that is so important for us to be ready for that conversation. Any tips to us adults on how we can be ready for that?
I mean, if someone says, "Oh, can we have a conversation?" You know, don't sit down and think, "Oh, maybe they're just going to decide what they want for dinner." Maybe it is a little bit more serious, and it doesn't just have to be about coming out. Maybe they have other news to tell you, kind of thing. So just prepare yourself. I mean, the world is a big scary place nowadays, and it can be anything. It's just mostly to be open to have a conversation and let that person speak. You know, don't try and put words into their mouth. I think it's about supporting them and letting them finish what they're trying to say before you ask questions back, because that's important as well. Like when I was coming out, I found it really helpful when adults asked me questions back. And it could just be that they're curious. It doesn't have to be 20 questions. It doesn't have to be an interview, you know, but just to say, like, just that they're supportive questions. If you need help, or is there anything else you want to discuss, or do you know what I mean? It's very important to have that.
So the first tip really is about keeping your mouth shut and listening and like taking in what the teen has to say. And then the second thing is being curious about the perspective. And even offering up, what can I do to help you through this process?
Absolutely. I mean, exactly what you said. I think it's about listening firsthand and then asking questions. And they can be supportive questions. It can just be like, have you met someone? You know, is there anything that I can support you with? Is there any information? You know, it's a lot of different processes going on in that time for both sides. It's not just one-sided. And like I said, I was very lucky. The first question when I sat down, my dad was watching TV and I sat down. It was actually a football match to stereotype everything. Sat down and actually told him. And he was probably the person I was most scared about telling. But he was the one that probably reacted the best.
Interesting.
And the thing that he said was, as long as I was happy, that's the question he asked, are you happy? I said, yeah, I'm happy. And he was like, then it doesn't matter. As long as you're happy and healthy, that's all I want for my children.
Nice. That sounds like a really nice response. Is showing this non-judgment, and what takes the front, sits on the front burner is your happiness.
And I mean, from my side as well, I have told people, and then it goes silent. But I try to think that's maybe not a shock from their side, or that they disagree. Maybe it's just that they are trying to process what I'm telling them. You know, not everyone is open to jumping straight away, asking questions and that kind of thing. So I also understand that it's a process on the other person's side, that they need to process everything.
Especially if it's kind of like a spur of the moment conversation as well.
I mean, I've had friends that they've told their like grandparents when they're peeling vegetables in the sink, you know, that it's now's the right time, and then they just say it, kind of thing. Because when is the right time for these kind of conversations? It just has to be right, the right feeling, the right situation. I think.
Wonderful. So I'm curious about what sorts of reactions you might have had that we as adults could stay away from.
I'm sure there's a lot that you've seen in like comedy series and stuff like that. I mean, there's lots of different ways, but I think the most open way that you can be is to, like I said, to listen. I have had reactions where people are like, oh, you're only joking, right? No. Okay, yeah, I'm joking. Like in that situation, or I've been with friends of friends and they're like, oh my God, you're my first gay friend. kind of thing. And then I feel a little bit like, yeah, but can't I just be your friend?
Yeah.
Kind of thing. That they always bring that into it. And like I said before, I don't like to see that that's my first quality. I don't see my friend George as my straight friend. He's just my friend, kind of thing.
That's interesting why we're like that. So, okay, so the things we shouldn't do is like, funny guy. Okay, you're joking. And the other thing is where we don't want to, it's almost like you kind of don't know what to do, and it's like, oh, you're my first date friend.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if you feel like that someone has told you and you're a little bit unsure, just say that you need time. Be honest.
That's good.
Like, just say, like, okay, this is a lot for me to take in. Maybe I need a day, a few days, you know, but carry on the conversation as much as you can. But there's no problem in saying, I need a little bit of time to process stuff, because sometimes it comes as a shock to people. And that works on both sides. I've told people before, and then all of a sudden they ask me questions. I've said, yeah, I can answer these, but I need a little bit of time because it is an emotional situation.
That's a really good tip as well. Yeah. I think that's something that we need to think about, is we don't have to always have an answer right away. Like if we're uncomfortable, it's okay to say, hey, this was a lot of information I need to process, and then it's respectful.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's more about being honest rather than backing off and giving the silent treatment. Just say, I need a little bit of time. Yeah, that's for me personally, that's totally fine. That's not a problem if someone said that to me at all.
So what if someone said, for example, like an adult, thank you for sharing that with me, Paul. Like, how would that make you feel?
Yeah, good, because I think it feels almost like that I've opened up to them and they've seen that I've trusted them with this information. Yeah. So if they are thanking me or they're coming back, because you don't know their life situation maybe. Yeah. Like I had that with a colleague that was a little bit older. I told her after a few weeks of work, we just got onto the conversation, about personal life, and I told her and she was like, thank you so much, because I think my grandson is going through the same situation. And then she was asking me more questions about it, and she said that she had never really had that connection with someone that close that she could ask questions about it. So she was a little bit scared, but not scared because he's gay, but scared like, how do I handle this? Because she wanted to do it the best way possible because she loved him so much.
Här kommer några tips för att hjälpa tonåringar att prata om sin sexualitet. Vara redo när en tonåring bjuder in dig till samtal. Låt tonåringen prata färdigt. Bekräfta tonåringen och se hela tonåringen som den är. Avstå från att definiera tonåringen baserad på sin sexualitet. Använd ditt lyssnande jag. Du behöver inte ha alla svar eller lösningar. Ta in vad tonåringen säger. Var nyfiken på ett respektfullt sätt och icke-dömande sätt. Ställ öppna frågor för att visa ditt stöd. Visa uppskattning. Tacka tonåringen för att de delade med sig av sina tankar. Mer tips för effektiva samtal med tonåringar finns i boken Kraften i snacket. Effektfull kommunikation med tonåringar. Om du skulle behöva stöd eller vill prata med någon om din sexualitet finns jag här för dig. Kontakta gärna mig på jennifer@novovia.se eller ring till någon av följande telefonnummer.